Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 161. You are in for a treat today, and we are in for a treat today because we are joined by Mr. Paul Bassett. Is joining us on the podcast today. We have.
You didn't make the appearance fee available. you know, I need it in my bank account before I turn up.
It's like Arnold withdrawing his name from the Arnold Classic in England because I don't know all the behind the scenes thing, but his money wasn't cleared, so he didn't even come over to the event last year because it's kind of licensed to have his name and his and everything else, and something went on behind the scenes and he didn't get the money, so he didn't even come over. Anyway, yes. So Paul Bassett, we are joined with the three of us today, the three hosts. We got some big shows coming up. You know, we've got guests that we're lining up. We've got our world first coming next week with Dan John and Phil Maffetone, two giants of the health, fitness, and sports performance industries for the first time meeting on in a podcast or on a stage or on screen or anything. So we're looking forward to that, and we're also lining up some other fantastic guests. But today, the three of us are going to be talking and musing and discussing some things, along with the conversation we had last week with Matt Shaw. We're going to some of the topics that were brought up in there we thought were really interesting, so we're going to kind of dissect and delve into those a little bit. But before we do, let's welcome our usual hosts. Mr. Peter Lant in Bath, how are you doing?
I'm knackered. I'm tired. I'll tell it how it is. I'm knackered. I'm feeling a little bit knackered and overwhelmed, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
It is what it is. No, because I like this walking group that I'm starting up. The next one's on Saturday, and I'm getting inquiries about it because I thought, when you start something like a bit of a walking group, people like a bit of walking and all that. So I'll just say meet here and we'll go walking. And then the amount of questions that you get about, have you got an OS map with the gradient on of the hills that we're going to be going up and all that? And I'm like, no, I haven't. So,
do an FAQ. Just send them an FAQ.
No, James said that, but I haven't got to that yet. I've just, all I want is people to turn up and walk. So it's fine. It's just one of those things that you just, once it gets going and you get in the flow, it's okay, isn't it? And then people turn up and all of that sort of stuff. But at the minute, it's in that thing of like having to try and anticipate all the questions that are going to come in, because like some people,
like we said, and like Paul said, make a list of all these questions that come in, and then it will be, when you do get a spare half an hour, you can type it into a document and just cut and paste it out to anyone who inquires, can't you? But yeah, it's
just things like, I'm very unfit. Will you be able to accommodate me? And it's like, I don't know what that means. So. It depends, doesn't it? I can't actually answer that question.
You're strong enough to carry them, though, aren't you?
Well, people like that have said, just come along, because there's a hill at the very start, and if you feel like you have to turn back, I'll come with you, and then the rest of them can carry on, because there's at least one person coming who knows the route, so she can carry on and take them around. Because Sean's not here this weekend, but she would usually be there as well, and she would just go off with other people, and I'd say, right, well, if you can't make it, I'll take you back. And so I'm like, everyone's going to be looked after, but it's just, it's tiring answering all these questions. That's not the only thing, but there's lots going on. But that's like, that was something I didn't really anticipate.
No, I mean, after our chat last week with Matt, we've had some people sign up for the for the Mace Day, and then Steph's been sending emails out to everyone who signed up. But we're kind of fairly used to running events now, but still you have to put down, kind of like remind people of, the day, the time, maybe turn up half an hour earlier to register and get comfortable, there's a fridge if you want to bring food, if you maybe bring a mace, but if you haven't got one, don't worry, these are the kind of clothes to bring a towel, bring water, you just kind of have to lay it out, don't you? And eventually you'll get to that, kind of level of just having it automated. But it is, but like you say, all the questions you get, we're doing I was going to actually mention, we haven't spoken about this before, but I mean, it's probably a bit far for you, but we've got a walking weekend we're doing next June in Norfolk, near Great Yarmouth, and we've got 33 people coming for the weekend, which would be lovely. So if there's any chance of you coming down, it'd be lovely in a different part of the country for you to walk in. But so we got 33 people, and for them, it's also, booking hotels and arranging transport, and it's all that sort of stuff. So Steph now just sort of finds the hotel, sends everyone the link, and says, this is the reference number. Book yourself a hotel. Come back to me. Tell me when it's done. But yeah, organising events and things is there's so much to think about, and no matter if you think you've got everything covered, there'll always be a question that comes up that you haven't thought of or no one's asked before. So yeah.
I know, because for this, it's literally like, we'll turn up at this place at 9 o'clock. We'll do the walk, which isn't that far, and then we're done. That's it. That is it. So it's that thing, isn't it? You've seen it on like Facebook and stuff, where someone will put up a post and say, I put this post up, and it says, we start here at this time on this date. You need this, and then inevitably the questions come in. What time does it start? What date is it on? Because nobody reads the actual stuff.
Trying to find the address of our business, which is on the website, which is on Google Maps, which is on Google, which is in the text that they get in the email that they get. Where is it?
Yeah, where is it? It's like, Google it. It's there. Do you want me to? There's a link you can go to called Google It For Me or something like that. And you can send the person the link. You type in what they need to know, and then you can send them that link, and it literally sends them the link and types it into Google for them. They could have just done it themselves. It's like, there's your answer.
And how are you, Mr. Paul Bassett, in Putney there?
During lunch, a bit bored. Asked ChatGPT to convert Homer's Iliad into a haiku poem, which I thought was quite impressive. It did the same for The Lord of the Rings, and Existentialism and Humanism by Sartre.
You could always do some of these podcast canvas while you're bored.
Yeah.
little bit of an in joke there.
Well, I did get it to rewrite American Psycho as a kid's book.
Okay, I've read that. Bret Easton Ellis, isn't it? I think I read that.
Yeah. Have you not read it? Oh, right.
Yeah, no,
it's not a kid's book.
It's certainly not a kid's book. No, it's certainly not a kid's book.
But the thing is it literally takes 2 seconds. I just put it on speakerphone. I don't even have to do anything. I could be concussed and it would do stuff for me. Which is actually my.
Are you going to use it to do like constructive stuff and that as well?
I do actually. I do use it for stuff. I was trying to get into Midjourney to see if it can do graphic design, just so we tell. No.
So are you currently reading the kids' version of American Psycho to your kids before they go to bed? Yeah, is that?
Yeah, it's not bad actually. It's I'll say so. A typical guy. Beneath the surface, there was more than met the eye. But in our story, we'll keep things light. No gore or violence, just smiles so bright. So as we close this tale, let's all agree that Patrick's adventures are not what they seem to be. In the world of imagination where stories are spun, we'll leave out the darkness and have lots of fun.
Is that it? Is that the abridged version?
Well, that's the second half of the abridged version. Okay. So it doesn't really go into gory details.
No, good. You give them nightmares. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how.
It was a horrible book. I remember reading that as a horrible book.
It's a horrible book.
Yeah, I've seen the film, but the film's kind of not as horrible as the book.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's one of those books you don't know why you read it.
Yeah.
You don't know what you accomplished reading it.
No.
And you don't know why you wrote it, to be fair. But there you go.
Anyway, let us begin by wishing former guest and friend of the show, Gary Clark. Best of luck. He messaged us and he's just posted. He's out in Orlando, Florida for this weekend for the Magnus for Magnuson Adaptive Strength World Championship. So obviously Magnus was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Gary's been on the podcast a couple of times, who is the chap who organised, run and competes in the Britain's Strongest Disabled Man. And he's out there in Orlando. I think it's Orange County, event center or something like that, for the 2023 World Strength Games, which is also including the Adaptive Strength World Championship. So best of luck to Gary. Hopefully I look forward to seeing some posts and things from him over the weekend at that event. And we're also lining up a few guests who Pete and I met at the Disabled Strongman event. One really lovely girl who we're lining up to get on the podcast, which hopefully we'll be talking to in the next few weeks. So yeah, we obviously had this chat with Matt last week, and one of the big things, I mean, a couple of things that came from it for me, which I really liked, was his emphasis on outdoors and the outdoor kind of life and the benefits of fresh air and community, and actually training for something more than and greater than, you know, just being good in the gym, as it were, you know, training for something that's got real carryover into everyday life. And then something that we went into quite a lot of depth about, which I wasn't really expecting us to, but I thought it was a really sort of beneficial and interesting conversation, really, was when he heavily went into this kind of body composition, you know, cover model phase, where he was getting ready for a photo shoot and getting kind of as lean as possible and getting more into bodybuilding and isolation training. And it was all about aesthetics. And that was the goal. And he said, it's fine, because that was the goal at the time, was to do that. And I think on reflection, he said that he actually went into that so heavily because he was maybe trying to get away or distract himself from maybe some other stuff that was going on in his private life at the time. We didn't go into what that was, but obviously we can kind of think of times where we've maybe all had stuff going on personally, and he kind of dove deeply into this to kind of distract himself and remove himself from some other issues that were going on. But yeah, you found that quite interesting, didn't you, Pete? The way he kind of, you know,
I did,
yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know about you, and I don't know about everybody, but like for me, it's like, you know, there's always like a secret desire to look like that. To be fair, if you could do it, if you could take a pill and look like that tomorrow, you know, who wouldn't? To be honest, and I used to feel like that, and I didn't get down about it, but like I'd see myself in the mirror and I'd just be like, I'm not happy with that. But now that I'm stronger and I'm fitter and I feel healthier, I don't actually. I mean, when I was my biggest, I was like 13 stone. I wasn't like obese or anything like that, but I was flabby because I didn't have much muscle and I wasn't strong. So the weight that I carried was body fat, basically. But when I changed that, I actually went really skinny and I went down to 9.5 stone because I just lost all the body fat and a bit of muscle and all that, because I thought that's what you did. But then when I've put muscle back on, so I'm now, I mean, what was that? I went down to like 62 kilos or something, and I'm now at like 73. So I'll have put some body fat back on, but it's mainly muscle that I put back on. So feel it, but I'm not ripped. So feel it, I feel stronger, and I don't look that much different to when I was flabby, because I've still got a layer of fat. But I feel a hell of a lot better, and I can see myself in the mirror and go, I could get rid of it. I've got like a couple of tiny little love handles, you know. It's like Alan Partridge, isn't it? He goes, I've got a fat back.
Yeah.
He goes, it looks fine in casual clothing, but you know what, you know, but like just little fatty deposits above the belt line.
You don't want to see me. I think the line is, it looks fine in casual clothing, but you don't want to see me in my underpants.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, basically that's it. So it's only Sean who gets that privilege, to be honest. What was I going to say? Where was it? Yeah, so I actually don't look that much different. But in my head, I look way better, so actually it's the perception of what I'm seeing rather than what is actually there. And if I wanted to be ripped, I could probably do it in a couple of months, but it's not a goal. So it was interesting when Matt was talking about it, because I've thought about it before and thinking like, well, how hard can it be? And it turns out from listening to him, even though he was, he said he didn't walk around with a six-pack and stuff like that naturally, and that's because some people do. Don't they? Some people just lose body fat like that, and they're ripped, and it's like, there you go. And he said he really struggled with it, and I think that would happen to me. And I'm a similar age as well, so it's like, I've toyed with it before, but then I'm like, nah, sorry, I'm just going to keep getting stronger.
I think the line that he used, which was quite good, which I think is it was from a film, and I think no one will know the film. A couple of people might. I think it was called The Girl Next Door. But there was a thing saying, "Is the juice worth the squeeze?" Yeah. And he used that, didn't he? He said, "I got to the end and I realised that the juice wasn't worth the squeeze." The result he got and the way he felt and the way he got there wasn't really worth the impact and the toll it had on him and the rest of his life, and personally and emotionally and psychologically and all the rest of it, which was quite interesting. You obviously, Paul, run the Amazing 12 program, which kind of people go into the 12, the classic, the Amazing 12 Classic is a 12-week program where obviously at the end people have a very sort of an aesthetic change. That's kind of, I suppose, this body transformation. But I don't know, is the goal with the Amazing 12 though is not purely aesthetic, is it? It's also performance. Kind of explain to us how you find this with people you work with.
I think like anything, like a bike, there's gears, isn't there? And you choose the appropriate gear for your goals. And I quite like having the ability to change gears for clients depending on their needs, and the A12 plays a role in that. Certainly on the performance side and the aesthetic side. Yeah, I think predominantly, actually, whilst the photos are the social proof, they're often the thing that everyone sees. It's not really, for me, it's not really what the program does. I think the program is a performance program, and actually the aesthetic element is really it's only really focused in the last couple of weeks. So the diet is not arduous. It is for some. I think I've said this before. Attachment is the main source of suffering that people have. They're attached to something else in their life or previous way of doing things. And so as soon as they start doing a health program, nutrition program, they bring with it that resistance, and then they start to suffer. Because every time they turn up, they're working against type, they're working against that, whatever they're attached to some part of their old life. And that means that people can have two paths on any of these programs. They can have a path in which they turn up and they get to change their body, and every day they turn up and they're excited and they've got this great opportunity to get healthier, to realize their goals and get stronger and perform better and become maybe a more, Paul McElroy designed the program, uses a phrase, have you ever met the real you? And, that's because he has a belief that the real you should be strong, should be energetic, should be lean, should be confident. But there's often things holding us back because we're attached to them. And so I think part of the program is to address those things head on, because we've only got 12 weeks. And I think the thing is about a lot of body transformation programs, they are time based. And that sets a fire under the whole process.
I'm going to say it helps having a finish line, doesn't it? For many people, it helps even when you think of like a work project or anything, having a deadline kind of focuses the mind, doesn't it? And focuses the action and focuses the discipline. Yeah.
But with that, there comes costs. So, you could probably do a radical transformation, a similar kind in 6 months with a couple of weeks of fast, a couple of weeks of competition diet at the end, and it not be an arduous process and probably still get a similar result. particularly if your training was super effective, and you weren't too, you were gradually losing weight over that time. But because the fire's there, and because we've got a timeline, it means that you really have to get your mind engaged straight away. And particularly if you have a big transformation to make. I mean, Matt was a fit guy already, and it was hard work for him. So to get Matt's level of leanness, yeah, and genetics do play a role. It's difficult. I don't wake up in the morning with a six pack. I know some people can do. We've had clients on the program who, by week 5 have a six pack. And we've had other people who don't have a six pack at the end, even though they've lost more. They're stronger. They're, in many ways the same weight or whatever. So it's, but that 12-week period, you've got to make a decision to show up and commit yourself to a change. It's not just about choice. It's about transformation. It's not just about change. You're not just changing, or I'm just moving. I'm having olive oil instead of butter, or I'm having brown rice instead of white rice. It's not that. That's not what it is. It's a transformation of your mind, your body, of your whole habits and behaviors. And depending on what you come to that program with and what you're dealing with in life, you can either bring resistance or you can bring opportunity.
Do you find that when people get to the end of the 12 weeks, is it do most of them, or do some of them, or do many of them continue with you, or do they kind of get to the end of that 12 weeks and do they kind of quickly revert back to where they were before or what they were doing before, or does it have a real long-term change, or is it a mixture of all of the above kind of thing?
Yeah. So, I think if someone comes off the street and they say, I want to do the Amazing 12, rarely have kept them beyond the 12-week program. That's their goal. That's what they want to do. We now select mainly just from our own client base. So if we do it, we just run it. We're just running it once a day, at a certain time slot every week. And I'm only choosing people from our client base who I can trust that are going to bring their A game to it, who are in the right place. And that works for us now, because then we've got people who are committed, people we can coach them. They know our training style. They're comfortable with us. We can actually get down and do some work. Whereas, and they often, they'll either have frozen their membership and move to the A12 membership, and then they just revert back to their old membership when they finished, or we have a plan in place and we just set them up and talk to them about doing something afterwards, because they're in the mindset that they were going to be coached anyway, and this is just the opportunity to press the button, the big red button, go. Okay, now we can do it. Yeah, I've got a bit of time. I'm not on holiday. It works a bit easier, etc. And then they do it. So it can be, and do people revert? So what they come out with, they're darn sight stronger than they ever were. So they perform much higher in all the classes. They don't all maintain the same level of leanness, because it's really difficult to, because
it's kind of peaking,
there are techniques that we use on photo shooting. There's a peaking phase to it.
It's kind of peaking.
It's a photo shoot for a reason.
Yeah.
It's a bit like someone doing London Marathon. Would they do London Marathon the week after and the week after and the week after? I mean, your tolerance can go up. Say they did 3 phases in a row, then they might find it easier to peak each time and have a better result, and it might have less physiological effect and be much better. Much better habits in place, so less resistance, better techniques. But they're not going to be able to run a marathon every day. They might be able to run a marathon that gets steadily faster, 3 times a year.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when sorry, go on, Pete.
No, I was going to say, it's that thing we spoke about it with James Brees ages ago of homeostasis, didn't we? And it changes your. I mean, I don't know if that happens in 12 weeks, but if you and then you might not be as lean a month down the line, but if you maintain the strength training and eating well and all of that, your body becomes more used to being at that state, rather than
they're tougher. They're just tougher.
You get someone who's obese and then they lose 10 stone, whatever, and then just say, right, there you go, and then go back and revert to how they were. They go straight back to where they were, don't they? Because your body, your brain, it doesn't like change. It likes to be where it is, and it's comfortable where it is. So if you change anything, you've got to maintain it for a long time before it becomes comfortable in that.
Well, that's why you have to transform. You can't change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you have to have made, and I think that's the ones who are really successful. They come out with a different mindset. They know that they can press that switch when they want. They know that they know they haven't got a genetic limitation. They know that they're not the broken one. And it's just a question of priorities in their life at any given point. So, if you go from training 5 days a week, and reality is afterwards you've only got time to train twice a week, then obviously your result will diminish a little bit. But you now know that twice a week is a non-negotiable. It's just easy because you've done 5 days a week. You know how to eat a little bit better. You know how to swing a kettlebell or lift a barbell or whatever with greater force, greater confidence, and then you can press the accelerator pedal whenever you want.
I've had that with a couple of online guys actually. There's one who's been with he came via, both of them came via the podcast, I think actually, but he got in touch with me just over a year ago, but he could train he could do 5 days a week, but he wanted 3 strength days and then like some conditioning as well. So I was like, that's fine. And so what I do is I cycle the days. So it's like, say 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday are the strength days. So say it's like squat, press, squat, and then the week after it will go press, squat, press, and then squat, press, because I could get him to do the whole lot. I mean, he does more than that.
AB, is it?
Yeah, basically. So I could get him to do the whole lot each session, but he'd just be knackered. So it's like, right, but I said, what will happen here is the progress will be slower. However, it'll happen. It just means you won't burn out because he's got kids and a job and foreign travel and all this sort of stuff. And he's been on that for over a year. I mean, with variations on it and stuff like that, and different rep ranges and what have you. But he just hasn't stopped making progress. And it's amazing. And then this other guy came to me who's done the Amazing 12, actually. It's a Northern Irish guy. He's done the Amazing 12. And then he just wanted to build his strength. So he came in saying he could do 4 days a week. So I gave him the program. Then he wanted to drop it to 3 days a week because he does jiu-jitsu and all this sort of stuff as well. So I was like, that's a good, thanks for telling me. This is like the feedback I ask for and what have you. Because I get some people who just go, it's too much. I can't handle it. And I'm like, well, let's have a chat then and we'll give you, that's the whole point. But I said to him, you can do this AB model. And I sent him a program and he was like, no, I just want to do 3 days of like 3 lifts and that's it. Because that's what he enjoys. And I was like, God bless you. Because that's even easier to do, right? But I was like, but he's just nails it every time. And he's been like, the feedback is like, here's my videos, here's this. So, yeah.
Well, if he's been through the A12, he's probably built the discipline of showing up and doing the work.
Exactly. But like you say, it's working out how many days a week you can do, what you're going to actually do, and then do it. And it doesn't matter if it's 1 day a week or 5 days a week or whatever. It's what you can do, right? Because you get a lot of people who commit to, I mean, the A12, right? People have to commit to it, but it's for 12 weeks, like you say. Then after that, they can change it up, but they have to commit. But at least there's that time frame. But if you get people like us saying, oh, you just do it for the rest of your life, they're like, I can't train 5 days a week for the rest of my life. It's,
no.
It's like,
But I think going from where I used to train six sessions and then to four is probably a good fit for me at the moment, 4 times a week. 3 might be even, 3 would be easier to fit in than 4, but I don't know if I get the same,
I can't cope with more than 3 physically.
Benefit,
I can't cope with more than 3.
Depends what you're doing though, doesn't it? At the moment, 3 for me is perfect because I'm actually, the weights I'm pressing and what have you now are way heavier than I ever used to be able to. So it becomes recovery. So you don't actually have to do as much.
No, and
the 4 more anyway.
Yeah, the 4 sessions I do, they're really 2 sessions, twice. So I've got essentially the same session, 2 sessions twice in a week. So one is barbell, one is deadlift, squat, bench press, and pull-ups, and one is kettlebell press, bicep curl, and a tricep pushdown. So one workout's got 4 exercises and one workout's got 3 exercises. But the sets, as you know with Paul's stuff, they're some of them, a lot of it is sort of 10 sets of each thing. So it does take a while, and that's hence why I split them up. But it kind of, I wouldn't want to do any more than I'm doing, put it that way. You know, I could probably do less, but I certainly wouldn't want to do any more, you know. But with regards to the leanness stuff, I remember when I used to train for boxing and used to box, I used to weigh in at like 64 kilos, 63 and a half kilos, which was 10 stone. It's kind of like welterweight. And I had that as my kind of, I'd get to that as like a step on the scales and be that. But I wouldn't have been able to maintain that for, you know, a few times I'd have to hit it. And then maybe 2 weeks later, I'd have to hit it again. And then a month later, I'd have to hit it. So I got very, very good at manipulating my body weight and my food. And when I got to that, I was like super, super, super lean, and was probably like a 28-inch waist and nothing to grab at all, you know, as lean as anything, lean as I've ever been in my life. And like you say, I just, without having that need to be that lean, I would really struggle to get that lean again without having, you know, someone putting a gun to my head or having a really, really good reason to get there, you know. Because like Pete said, I kind of feel like I've been very heavy. I've been like 100 kilos, and I've been 63, 64 kilos. And at the moment, settling in the kind of 78 to 81 is kind of the middle ground for me. And that's kind of where I feel strong. I feel comfortable. I kind of don't really moderate what I eat or the amount that I eat, you know, and it's kind of, it's something I can sustain, I think, for the rest of my life, you know. So,
yeah, again, the James Brees thing, a lot of stuff he said was really good. Dan John was funny though, wasn't he, when you said the 777? He's like, well, I'll do 888. And then
yeah,
one better.
One better, yeah. 8,000 steps, 8 glasses of water, 8 hours sleep a night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do that, and then you're better than the 7. But anyway, when he said the your height in centimeters minus 100 is give up plus or minus 5 kilos, depending on what you're training for or your sport or whatever, is bang on. And I'll say I'm 172 centimeters. I don't know. I might be 160. Who knows? Because I don't know, because I don't really measure how tall I am. But I think I'm probably about 172, and I'm usually 72, 73 kilos, bang on. So that's like, and looking at that, I'm like, I'm happy with that. Because then you don't have to worry about BMI. You don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. Because if I look at BMI,
I'm be happy.
If I look at BMI, I'm borderline overweight, which is ridiculous. But then again, I'd just have to probably trim my beard, and then I'd come in the middle.
And the other one, isn't it? It's the other one. So you've got the height in centimeters minus 100 would be the weight in kilos, which you just said, and then you've also got the half your height, you know, in terms of your waist as well, which is the other one, which is quite nice because that bypasses the whole BMI as well. You know, not that BMI is wrong or bad for like normal, untrained, you know, normal people is a fairly good indicator, you know, but it's the half of your height being your waist is a good one as well for people, you know.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Paul? You said something about happy. I missed it.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say, if I try and get my train of thought, what you want to be is happy at the end of anything you do. You know, because not everyone's going to get a six-pack. Not everyone's going to have ridiculous. I mean, if you look at some of the transformations, you know, people doing one-leg squats with, you know, heavy weights, they're, you know, deadlifting 200 kilos in, and that's not everyone's trajectory, and it won't be. And actually, at the end of the program, you might not even have traditionally impressive weights that you're using. You'll be downside stronger. You'll be much, much more confident in your body, but you won't necessarily be breaking records just because you've done a 12-week program. But you've got to be happy, I think, and you'll only be happy if you've started working on those fundamental elements that help you kind of change your perspective on what's possible, I think. And that's what, you know, Pete said, you know, I'm happy at this, you know, I'm happy at this.
I mean, that's the thing.
Why do anything different? If you're happy, if you're genuinely happy, you know, not just saying it because of positivity, you know, police or anything, you know, you could just say that you're happy, then that's fine, do it, you know.
I'm happy with this, but I'm going to change it.
I mean, the thing, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That the weight someone uses, or whatever, the speed they run at, or they cycle at, or the distance, whatever it is, it's all just down to individual progress, isn't it, and development. So,
well, that brings us to what we were talking about before we pressed record, wasn't it? Because I said about the post that Paul put up saying basically everything else being equal, if you get stronger, you get more confident, and so it's a big subject, isn't it? But it's like, why do most people want to join a gym or whatever? To lose weight, to build a bit of strength, even though they probably don't realize that. They just think it's more of an aesthetic thing of losing weight, not getting ripped or anything like that, just losing a few pounds. But actually, if you do strength training as well, you maintain lean muscle and lose body fat. That's what people actually want, isn't it? Even though they don't know it. So the post he put up was about, because then people can, like, we've just talked about being happy, being confident. And his post was saying, show me someone who's stronger than they were this time last year, or who has just got stronger, and tell me that their confidence hasn't got better in their abilities and resilience, their abilities to be able to do stuff. So like this walking group that I'm doing, there's a lady at the minute who's asking a lot of questions, and she's not confident that she'll be able to turn up and do it. And I'm like, turn up and we'll see how it goes. And then we can build from that. And that's building confidence, because we've spoke a lot about it in the past as well. And I think Matt was talking about something similar to this last week, of just being able to say to someone, do you want to come and walk up this mountain with me? And they just go, yes, please, without even thinking about it. So this lady, it would be great to be able to say, right, we're going on a walk. And she's like, yeah, I'll be there. And that's it. And if she can do it, that's the confidence. So it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think about that, because it was also, how much strength do you actually need? So when you get stronger, you get to a certain level, you become very strong. Do you need to get stronger from there? And Paul's argument was like, well, there's no diminishing return on that, because you just build more. It'll take longer, it'll be minimal and all that. However, he doesn't see any downside to that. But in my head, most people don't even need to worry about that end of it. They don't need to care, because they just need to get stronger than they are now, because most people are relatively weak compared to what we used to be as well. And that's not being horrible to anybody who's out there and all that. It's just most people are. And I think most people know that, but they don't know what to do about it, or they don't really feel the need to do anything. So what do you guys
think there's also, I've just coming to the end of the Dan John Easy Strength Omnibook, and one of the things he talks, because he obviously trained for track and field and for throwing, for discus and different events, and he kind of, there's numbers that he talks about in quite a few of his books, where he says, if you are a discus thrower, these are the standards you want to get to, in terms of, you want to clean this much, you want to jerk this much, you want to be able to squat this much and deadlift this much, or whatever. And he says, getting over those numbers, there's no more benefit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, once you're this strong, you're strong enough. Do you know what I mean? And if you're not throwing the discus further, or if you're not doing the high jump better, or whatever the event is, then strength isn't the issue. It's like the technique that you're using, you maybe need to spend more time on something else, and it's the same, I suppose, with like where one of the things he says is, once you can do 10 pull-ups, that's strong enough. You know what I mean? And if you've got a specific goal where you want to do 20, then that's fine. But if I think there is this kind of thing where we can always be chasing more and more and more and more, in the same way that people like Matt said, with the aesthetics and the obsession with ever increasing leanness, where it can potentially become quite destructive, where, I think I've seen it in my time, 25 years sort of in the industry, where I've seen a handful of people, probably between sort of like half a dozen and 10, something like that, who've tipped over into like, body dysmorphia and anorexia and stuff like that, because they start losing weight, and they start getting lots of positive reinforcement. And I know there has to be something in the mind going on as well. It's not just, but you know, they get a ton of positive reinforcement about, wow, you're looking fantastic. How much weight have you lost now? And they tip over at some point, and then they become quite ill, you know. And it's clear that this person is now, you know, they've not just lost weight and they've got trim and lean. They're like anorexic now. They've got a serious problem going on, you know. And I think the same thing with strength. You get people with you know, bigorexia and constantly chasing more muscle or more strength, and that can be quite destructive as well. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's yeah, there is a point. I think there's a tipping point where something goes from a healthy pursuit to a unhealthy obsession.
Well, if you're gonna take it to a logical conclusion and be facetious, you'd say the world's strongest man should be the most confident person on the planet. But obviously that doesn't really make sense, does it? I mean, I think someone who's stronger is harder to kill. You know, it's you know, there's a resilience in you when you have strength. So there's the practical application of strength. But I think after a point, like you say, I do agree that there needs to be, you know, there's a limit to its application, and after that, you need to develop other qualities. You know, there's a quote from what's his name, Jordan Peterson, where he talks about how men should be lethal. You know, and they should be able to create high levels of aggression or violence, but choose not to. So the ability to apply power is almost more important than to have it. But without it, you're then fearful, and then you're dangerous because you are then scared. And so, you know, these are things to think about. I think a lot of people that I see, what do they say? Weak men, well, is that classic thing where weak men make dangerous times make strong men make good times make weak men again. You know, it's there needs to be, I think there needs to be a certain level of ability and application of strength in everyone, because you're going to be more resilient, more confident in your abilities, more confident in yourself and your opinions. Strength is one aspect of that. I think you need to practice the critical thinking. I think you need to practice strength training. I think you need to be able to go for days, being able to walk and run. You know, anyone who tells you just strength training is the only way to do it, like Peter goes out on these long runs, you know, if you haven't got capacity, just do things, then you're pretty useless. But you also need to have those extra gears and choose when to use them. And I think that comes with the critical thinking. But if you don't have the extra gears, you don't have a choice. You're just stuck on that, and then you have to make do with whatever it is, and then you have to start relying on other people. I have to rely on this, I have to rely on that, and if they're not doing it, then I'm a victim, you know. And I think there is something to be said about someone who goes out and creates strength, creates the body that they want, creates the lifestyle that they have. They don't need to rely on as many people. They just choose to contribute in different ways, and then they can become what's it like Schwarzenegger says, you know, be useful. I think just more useful, you know.
I say it's being physically capable, isn't it? It's being physically capable of, and it doesn't. We're using the term strength, but it's really, yeah, it's really your ability to look after yourself and be useful to others, and to be a help for others, and all the rest of it. And that's why it'll be fantastic. It'll be really fascinating when we get Louise Greer on. I think, you know,
very interesting, isn't it?
Strong women, you know, like just people who have these, and Gary, when we spoke to him, you know, people who have these what could be perceived from the outside as disabilities and challenges, and you know, but choose to adapt, and like we said, Gary's at the Adaptive Strength Games out in America this weekend. You know, it's
well, it's not like Stephen Hawking. He had no way, in any way, of creating what we would traditionally see as strength. But at some point, he created something, some inner strength, some ability to be useful, to create opportunity. You know, and I think
he had a purpose, didn't he?
But yeah, very strong purpose.
He had a strong purpose, because he should have died. How old was he?
Well, he was 21 when he got it, and then I think he should have died.
So he should have died in his 20s, shouldn't he? Yeah. So he lived like 50 years longer than he was expected to.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's a
No,
bit-
and I think it's interesting just to sort of loop back round and tie it up, because we spoke to Matt last week, and he was talking about being in this state of and it ties in really well. We mentioned as well Pat Flynn talking about being a robust generalist, you know, and then and Matt used a different terminology for it, but being physically capable in many areas, and then when you decide to kind of turn your focus onto something very, you know, laser-like focus in one area, you've got the ability to suddenly switch and say, right, for the next 2 months or 3 months, I'm going to do this. And then you can become exceptionally good at that one thing, because you have this kind of robust generalist kind of physical fitness and physical capability going on, you know.
Well, a lot of people want to be loved, don't they? A lot of people want love. And we all say, we throw the word around, I love you, and this, we throw it around sometimes almost without meaning. But I think actually a lot of people want to be respected. They want respect. They want to say, I respect you. You know, you're a person of your word. You're someone who's able to deliver on something. You're someone who's capable. And I think one of the strength is one aspect that provides respect, you know, not in a physical violence way, but just in a way that's someone who you respect, who can do something, who has value, you know. And it's an expression of that, because it's hard fought. You have to earn it. You're not just given it, you know. I think strength is earned. You know, I know Paul Mackerel, we've been talking a lot about his program. He talks about strength is granted, but it's also earned. And it takes a lot of work to earn it.
There's something. Yeah, go on, Paul.
To a guy the other day. This is just sparked a memory. I was talking to somebody in the mindset group that I do the other day, and he was saying at work, he doesn't anymore, because like he has to do stuff for people, right? And he'd be the guy who knows how to do everything, and not everyone does, if you know what I mean, because he's been there for years, and he's just the guy who knows things, right? So he ends up like helping people do a lot of things, and he doesn't always get thanked for it. And he realized he was doing it for people to say thank you, and then when they didn't, he would get pissed off. So now he just does it because it helps people, and that's it. And if they don't say, because I was like, but if you're helping people all the time and they say thank you all the time, it's like you say, people trip around I love you and all that, and then it doesn't really mean anything. They say thank you, but they don't necessarily, they're just saying it because it's something that they should probably do, rather than like a thank you, or like at the end of the year, just like a thank you for everything that you've done, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things, if you're doing it to get praise from other people, or to get likes from other people on Instagram or whatever, how's that going to end up? Or if you're just doing it because it's the right thing to do for you and for everybody else in the world, if you're a better person for it, sort of thing. So
yeah, there's I'm listening to a podcast at the moment, a Dr. Chatterjee one, with I kind of will touch on it, but then I don't really want to go too far into it, because it'll open a whole new pathway, you know. But he's interviewing, I think she's an Australian lady who's the author of, is it like the 5 biggest regrets of the dying or something? It's a book anyway. And she worked in palliative care for 10 years and worked with, you know, so spent time with hundreds of people as they physically died, you know. So she would in some cases be their last conversation, you know, and the last person they spoke to. And it's I mean, I listened to the podcast. I think she'd be an amazing person to speak to, because how it changed her life from having these conversations with people as they died. And one of the things you just made me think about there, Pete, was you know, which again ties into a lot of what we spoke about. I suppose they can tie into a lot, is, you know, the ego and why we do things, and if we do things for the love, the adulation, the respect of other people, you know, rather than what is true to ourselves, you know. And one of the biggest regret, I think the number one biggest regret was that she talks about is I wish I'd had the courage to live my life the way I wanted to, rather than do things because other people expected it of me. Do you know what I mean? That kind of that was a huge thing. So
what is courage? I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Because we can't wait for it to happen. It's like you can't wait for inspiration. You know, if every time you only wrote songs when you were inspired, or you only read a book when you were inspired, or you only went to work when you were inspired, you'd be unemployed quite quickly. The same with courage. You know, it's a practice, isn't it?
Well, this is what she talked about a lot. And again, this could go on now, but she talked about choice. She's talking a lot about choice, you know, and how we all have choice, and we all have choices every day, and how we make those choices. And we mentioned, I think it might have been before we came on, I was talking about this new book, this North Star thinking, you know, which again is that kind of that guiding principles, you know, becoming, like you said, a person of principle, a person who does what they say they're going to do, but a person who does it from a very internal kind of place, you know, rather than trying to impress others. You know, it's fascinating, you know. I mean, it's and it gets down to the whole, you know, like Matt, when we got to the end of the conversation with Matt, and he said, I thought I wanted to do this thing and get to, again, to loop it back around to where we started almost. I thought I wanted to do this thing. I wanted to look a certain way because everybody on Instagram wants, you know, seems to look that way. Everyone gets respect when they look that way. You know, you get heaped with praise. Everyone's, you know, liking what you do and sending you great messages. But I did it and I got there and I realized, you know, I'm pretty miserable and I'm not happy, and this isn't me. You know, this doesn't resonate with me and my values, but I've done it and there was lessons learned from doing it. The number one lesson was, you know, I wish I hadn't done that, and I won't do it again. But at least there was a lesson.
What's that? It goes back to Dennis Vasiliev. He says, you know, he's got one. What's his lesson? He said, "Don't quit." And the second part was, if you have that attitude, you'll think twice about what you start.
Yeah, and that's why I think Matt went through with it, because he knew. He said he knew a few weeks before the end it wasn't for him, and he wasn't enjoying it. But he'd come this far in the process that he wanted to see it through, you know, and he wanted to get to the end, which again is an admirable quality.
Yeah, a lot of people don't finish things because it's too uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it's just the price of entry to some things, isn't it?
Yeah,
there was an interesting thing that. So I used to be coached years ago by Paul Moore. I don't know if you know these or not, but
yeah,
he used to say a thing, because he would put like out all videos and stuff like that. He's quite brash and all of that sort of stuff. He's not everyone's cup of tea, right? So he used to get people saying, you need to get over yourself. Now, I'm not an expert on ego and all that. Just, you mentioned the ego earlier, James, right? I'm not an expert on ego and all that, obviously. But people would say, you need to get over yourself, mate, because you're like full of yourself and all that. He goes, no. The problem is I have got over myself. That's why I can do all these videos like I am, because it's like, I don't care what you think, because I'm doing it for me, not for you. He's doing it to help people, but he's doing it to help himself as well. And then if people get helped because of that, brilliant. And that's getting over your ego, isn't it? Because your ego is there to protect you. So there's a kind of there can be a misunderstanding of what it actually is within that. And people think people with a big ego are all full of themselves. And it's like, no, people with a small ego are full of themselves because they've crushed it. And actually, and it's not believing their own bullshit, it's believing in themselves, isn't it? You know,
they're also susceptible to other people's beliefs.
Yeah. So, because it's all about influence as well, isn't it? Because if you're doing, so Matt was doing something, it was for him, but he was doing it for not necessarily the right reasons, but it wasn't to impress everyone on Instagram. But if people are doing that, that's the influence of the whole of seeing what everyone else is doing, isn't it? Rather than just doing it for you.
And for some people, that might be right for them, and that's what he said, wasn't it? For some people, that might be right for them, and it might resonate with their values, and it might feel perfectly aligned to them. But for him, it wasn't aligned to who he was, which ultimately, you know, is a lesson learned from it. And in the grander scheme of things, it probably took, you know, 12 to 16 weeks out of his life to find that out. And, you know, kind of no long-term harm done, but he's learned something quite valuable. And now, like we said, he can talk to people from a place of experience around that as well, which is good now. Cool. Excellent. I think we'll start to wrap up there, guys. That was it was interesting. Yeah, having this discussion around a number of topics. yeah, next week, Dan and Phil, and then more guests to follow. So I think probably no wrapping up is there today, Pete and Paul. We've kind of been talking ourselves for the last hour.
You don't want a haiku.
The entire works of Shakespeare in
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the entire works. Yeah,
3 lines.
Get off that Chat GPT or whatever it's called. AI.
What was that?
One week we'll turn up and it'll just be like, what was that thing? What was the thing in like the 80s? The kind of computer generated, not Harvey Wallbanger. What was the thing? You know what I mean?
Oh, Max Headroom.
Max Headroom.
Yeah.
It'll just be like a computer generated Paul, like AI Paul joining us.
Yeah. Or do you remember? I mean, we're not far off that scene in Demolition Man where they're all sat around the table with their heads floating on a.
Yes. The thing is, though, with Paul's Wi-Fi the way it is, he looks like Max Headroom. Around all over the shop.
No, the thing is, it's not the Wi-Fi that's the problem. It's just my life essence drifting and being interrupted. Yeah, that's generally where it is.
Glitch in the matrix.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you joining us each week. And we will be back next week. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so. If you'd like to join the Facebook group, go into Facebook under groups and search Health Oddity, and we will let you in. We will be back next week with Dan, John, and Phil Maffetone for that world first. That will be fantastic. This has been episode 161. That will be episode 162, unless we squeeze another one in between now and then, which I don't think we will. So we will see you.
We'll do a part 2 for this. Just the outro.
We will see you next week. Take care and bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.